Welcome everyone to the panel for Not for Resale. Not the final name, but Not for Resale, the documentary directed by Kevin James. Give it up for Kevin here.
Thank you for waiting in line. I assume some of you were in line, and we appreciate that. Thank you.
And I'm Pat Contry. I am the executive producer of this documentary, as well as the creative consultant, and sometimes heated arguer with Kevin about this.
Mainly about the title.
Yes.
So, just a quick poll. Does anyone know who I am outside of this movie?
King of Queens, right?
Yeah. Good. So, anyone in this audience, anyone back the movie in Indiegogo, anyone like following it online in that capacity? Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
So we were here last year shooting. Didn't have a presentation. We had 3-4 man crew running around, just getting various interviews at Portland Retro. Movie's been in production for about 2 years, and we wanted to come here today to show some of the movie. We have 15-20 minutes, and we want to do a short panel and a Q&A about the movie, see what people think about what they're seeing, what they hope to see, and go from there. Is there anything to get off your chest?
Well, what's your background? What people know, like, what do you do? Where are you from?
Well, I'm from New England, from Boston, and been a filmmaker since I was 15. I've worked in reality TV, feature films, tons of web content, and this is my first feature film. I've done the festival circuit before with short comedies and horror films, and I thought the easiest way to make a feature film would be a documentary. It turns out that is not the case, because you don't have a script of the documentary, you discover reality and things change. And in the last 2.5 years, the market, the way games are distributed have changed so much in the last 30 months. Even 2 months ago, was it, when Nintendo shut down those emulation sites? Was it 2 months ago?
Well, they sued Love ROMs because they allowed in browser runs with Cool ROM, and Paris like, we don't want to get sued.
Yeah.
So they shut theirs down, at least the Nintendo ROMs, but Nintendo might not have gone after them, but the landscape might have changed there a little bit.
Yeah.
But what is this about in theory, Not for Resale? What is this, what are we looking to delve at here? Delve into?
The movie has 2 major themes, which is, of course, physical retail. I mean, it's about video game stores, right? And tangible media. You know, like if they're codependent, it's symbiotic, right? Like you can't really have one without the other. I mean, look at Blockbuster, look at various bookstore chains, and you look at things like vinyl record shops, which had a weird resurgence 10 years ago. So it's an interesting ecosystem to watch.
The digital marketplace, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about, it's happened with books to an extent. It's happened obviously with music first, hit big with music. It's happened in the past, 5 to 6 years with streaming movies, streaming TV shows on Hulu, Netflix, new Disney service, things of that nature. So how's that affecting the video game market? And more specifically, how does that affect the mom and pop game stores?
Yeah.
We know that GameStop's already closed a bunch of shops. Was that a year ago? They closed up a bunch. So they're more the modern. But when you look at generationally how we're consuming media, it's changed dramatically the past 8 to 10 years.
Sure.
Dramatically, with not just YouTube, things of that nature, but physical media in entirety for entertainment may become a relic of the past. And video games has sort of been the last bastion of that, as we see more and more digital media is taking over. So it might impact these smaller shops. It might impact some vendors out here. Maybe not today or tomorrow, but what happens 10 years from now when kids growing up with the Xbox One buy all their games digitally, when they want to play a retro game 30 years from now, what are they going to think about? How to stream it, how to get it. There's been no physical media to buy. They won't think about that. So these are a lot of themes we're hitting at here.
Yeah.
And preservation, there's aspects of preservation that comes into play there. How do you preserve some of these games? What are the problems that you encounter trying to preserve games that have no physical form?
Yeah.
And we see that with apps. Flappy Bird was taken down for a while. People were scrambling to buy the cell phones with it attached on it for hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And it's here.
Yeah.
So
we're so used to, I mean, anyone born in the 80s or prior, we were so accustomed to the idea of like, oh, I pay money, I get the thing, I have the thing, that when we started going digital with music, you paid 99 cents for a song, right? Even that's like dinosaur idea now, right? Like everything's, you pay for a subscription model. So like, who knows what this is gonna be like in 10, 15 years? We're starting to see it, with like the idea of a video game console even being called into question. Like, well, my TV can stream PlayStation games, so I even need to buy the PlayStation anymore? The problem with the documentary, though, is we only have, realistically, 90 minutes to really get this story out there. So the initial idea for the movie came from me living in a hotel room for 3 months. I was working on a reality TV show in upstate New York, and there was a store called Robot City Video Games in Binghamton, New York. Awesome store with a huge arcade, and every week the whole crew would go to the video game store and buy tons of like Saturn, N64, and PS1 games. Like we just dropped like $50 each on stuff. And I thought, how come no one's done a movie about video game stores? There's like hundreds of record store documentaries. Like there's one being made right now about the last Blockbuster. No one's touching video game stores. People like video games, right? Am I missing something? It's too hard of a movie to make. So we did a 3-week road trip. We went around the US, up into Canada. We visited dozens of mom and pop stores to figure out what the movie would be. And that was just the first leg of it. It's been a year and a half since that trip. And you guys probably want to see some of it, right? So I figured the first thing we would show would be a product of that trip, which is, we went to stores in, I want to say, 20 states at this point. We tried to cover as much of the US as we could. We didn't just try to do like Boston, New York, Chicago. We tried to get far away from that. Like this year's North Carolina, Limited Run Games, fantastic store. Not Limited Run, Lost Ark Video Game. Yeah, Limited Run is in the movie too. This is up here in Salem, Massachusetts at a store called Game Zone, run by my new friend, Neil Crockett, who's been running his shop for almost 30 years. As recently as last week, I was out in Manhattan interviewing a fellow named Marcus Richardson, who manages 8-bit and up video games. Some of you might know Joe Santulli, who runs digital press in the National Video Game Museum down in Frisco, Texas. We got to go to his store a few times. On Monday, we're going to visit Kelsey Lewin's shop, Pinkarilla Games, up in Seattle. Some of you probably know that store. Kelsey's been interviewed twice for the movie already. This is just our first opportunity to see her at her store, managing it. Here's Treg out in Luna Video Games, San Diego, good friend of Pat's. Treg has a fantastic California accent. So what I'm first going to show here is a look at the Salem, Massachusetts store, Game Zone, which I fell in love with a couple years ago when I moved to Salem, run by Neil Crockett. And here's just a little idea of sort of the tone of our movie and what one of these shops looks like. We'll have more footage after this. I just wanted to give you these scenes and clips rather than just one big 15-minute, 20-minute dump. So let's see how it works on our PowerPoint presentation. Let's hope it works.
Attention gamers.
That's like half the Portland scene. So, I mean, we have more clips, but we don't have all the time in the world for this panel. We only have like another 13 minutes.
You guys like the direction so far? You see the cut of our jib?
Yeah. It's not too pretentious.
There's some things I want cut out of it. One of those clips that Tim probably knows, but other than that, I like it.
So we figured, there've been so many good documentaries about the video game industry the last 10 years. Like, I mean, God,
it was just something funny. I forced Kevin to come to Portland last year. I said that was a condition of me being a part of it. I said, you will come to Portland.
Yeah.
You have to. I'm glad. You're probably glad you had.
Yeah.
I mean,
once I figured out an angle for Portland, like the second we got here and I saw so many people came as a family, like you saw like people like in 3s and 4s, like the 2 kids like on mom and dad's shoulders, like, oh, that's the scene, like that's what we can talk about here. And almost everyone under 30 was like, I mean, no, I'm here to get beanies and like t-shirts and like it's like I want to play Twisted Metal, but I'm not buying the new one on Blu-ray, But yeah, we have more footage, but I figured, should we go into Q&A about the movie?
you guys want to do Q&A? Well,
Yeah.
any questions about what we cover, directions of this, things of that nature? When are we looking at a tentative release date?
Right. Oh, do we have like a microphone on the floor or anything like that, or just?
He's loud.
I can hear. I can hear. I'm good. So.
I'm currently going to college right now. I'm doing an intro to screenwriting class.
Yeah.
And I know that you said, and I can tell the difference, or I'm learning the differences, I should say. Without having a script, what have you found to be the hardest about creating this?
Without having a script, the hardest part of making a documentary? Oh man, just the structure, because I once read a review for oh God, what's Blackfish? Is that what's the SeaWorld documentary? Blackfish? Yeah, I watched it twice in one weekend. I don't remember the title of it, but I once read a review of that movie saying that documentaries should be more than just like information delivery. Like it shouldn't just be like I live the '80s. You know, like you should have a through line, right?
Yeah.
And like with this, you know, you want to have like the natural through line. Like okay, how can I spend 5 minutes with person A and then suddenly person B, C, D, E all comment and it doesn't feel like I'm just being snapped into another movie, right? That is the hardest thing about this.
And I would also think kind of making it seem not so robotic in a sense, you know, like you said, getting the actual emotions from the people.
Yeah, not just an essay that like I'm having them regurgitate, right? Like, because there have been a few things that we thought were going to be the case that weren't true, you know, and we had to roll with that. And then sometimes you end up having to like fly back or drive back across country to get more footage, you know, like finding out that people's like, you know, oh yeah, by the way, my dad works at the store on weekends. I'm like what? You hired your dad? It's like, oh yeah, he like instead of retiring, he works here. Like what? Like so, we didn't know that before we went to the store. So just having to balance the budget of your time more so than the money, honestly, is a big problem with documentaries, you know. And like we mentioned earlier, the market is changing so much. We want to get the movie out as soon as possible because for all we know, they're going to announce like the new Xbox and it's not going to have like a disc drive or something. And we'd have to change the entire movie, right? So, but yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah,
What formats are you releasing the movie?
Where's it? Yeah. So right off the bat, definitely Blu-ray. Where DVD seems like we'll do it because it's pretty cheap, but it's just
We are?
It's hard, right? Because who if you have a DVD player, you probably have a Blu-ray player.
It's the opposite. You have a Blu-ray player plays DVD.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, we'll discuss that probably about DVDs.
Definitely could be online.
Digital download. We'll do a digital download, right?
Yep. We're definitely
VHS!
VHS. I've done it. I did that with a movie.
Was that an Indiegogo tier?
That was actually an Indiegogo tier.
How many people got that tier?
2 people. It's a horror film I made called The Creed about a woman who accidentally wins tickets to see Creed in concert.
But for this one, was there a VHS tier?
No, there was no VHS tier in this. Maybe we'll consider it. I don't know.
So okay, Portland next year we'll have a Blu-ray. We might have like a thumb drive version. We'll just say we'll just get a digital download version in case.
Yeah.
You know.
So
What do you think about summer next year? It'll be out.
we're hoping. Yeah. The hardest politic you have to get through is the film festival circuit because if you get accepted into something, they want to be the exclusive way you access that movie through their festival, right? Like, okay, you got to premiere here, and most festivals are like March and April, right? So we've been ballparking like summer, like 2019, and it stinks because we have so much footage. We have so much of this movie that we've had to cut, and so many conversations and things that would make great like video podcasts just to watch. That can't be in the movie, that we're toying with the idea of how we could get that out there to people, whether that's like on Amazon Prime or something.
Blu-ray, extended scenes or deleted scenes. I mean, there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, so like,
Interview segments that you could probably just, like the one there's a conversation with me, Frank Cifaldi, and Kelsey, where you could probably just cut that whole conversation into one
it's like an
clip.
hour of like interesting discussion about this exact topic. But like, how much of that can even go in the movie, right? But no, so yeah, like we're gonna get it out like tangibly and intangibly, and the only thing that's really holding us up is, if we go to festivals, someone might pick us up, in which case it would still probably get released. It'd probably get released quicker that way, in fact, because we, take it out of our hands. But we're hoping by summer that it's out and everyone can watch the entire movie. So.
Was there anything that, when you started doing research for this, that you didn't know that you have learned now?
Oh, like new information?
Yeah.
Every day. Like it was like 5 days ago, Pat mentioned, I mean, this is just me being ignorant, but the chip shortage issue with the Nintendo, the NES back in the 80s, like that was new information to me. I mean, certainly things have changed in the world, like Toys R Us closures. Like I got people calling me about that, thinking I was an expert of sorts. I got interviewed for that. I didn't have much to say. Like, oh, that stinks. As far as like things I've learned, I mean, I've learned a lot about the people that run these stores. They all love video games. Some of them used to run video stores, like rental stores, and they got in on video games before everyone else in their district did back in the 80s. and most of them just would go to Toys R Us and Child World. Has anyone here heard of Child World before?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, Child World's a store, it's a lot like Toys R Us,
/ Child Palace,
Child Palace.
or Children's Palace, whatever it was.
And they would just go to these stores with like a briefcase and buy every copy of Super Mario 3 they could to rent it. Like learning about how wild west that market was in the 80s was crazy to hear about.
Yeah, so the chip shortage, I wish I mentioned it sooner because, I mean, I didn't get my, famously or not, I mentioned this in a certain NES guidebook, is that when we ordered Zelda 2, my parents ordered me Zelda 2 for Christmas, for like the Christmas of '88, so they probably ordered it from like Sears like November of '88. I didn't get it till April. And as a kid, you don't know why. But they didn't have chips in most of '88. They pushed back releases of lots of games. They produce a minimum amount of like Zelda 2 and Super Mario. You don't know that when you're a kid, unless you're in the know. So with digital distribution, that's not an issue.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about that. You get the game the second it's out.
Yep.
Like the second you download it, you got it. So
I know people preloading Red Dead 2 right now. Like, it's installed on their hard drive. They're just waiting for the key to unlock the thing.
that'd be cool if you had that for Zelda 2. So Pat wouldn't be crying every day in spring of '89. That would be great. Waiting for the UPS truck to come by. You must have a quote of me. You must have that quote in our
I don't know about the
conversation.
Zelda 2 thing.
But if you do, that could fit
That has to-
perfectly with the chip shortage,
Absolutely.
which we're trying to get someone to talk about.
We got a few more minutes. I got any more questions?
Did you have any specific scenes that you wanted to film but just did not pan out?
Anything that we weren't able to film for the movie, we've been really lucky. I didn't know if we were going to get like a major big game developer. Like I was wondering who's the biggest game developer we're going to get? Is it just going to be someone in their garage? And then it turns out a guy I went to college with now does marketing for Rocket League. I went to a state college in Massachusetts. It wasn't like a big school, and I just Facebooked him. So to actually answer your question, anything that we wanted to put in the movie, I'm drawing a blank. I mean, there were stores that played hardball with us early on. They thought that they didn't want to waste their time with us, and then they asked for us to come back later, and we just couldn't afford to come back. Yeah, I guess there just were a few stores we just couldn't make a second trip to, that kind of thing. We'd like to follow up on, but there's just time. You only have 90 minutes. Honestly, the movie could be like an 8-episode series, just following the families that run these stores. But
I wouldn't allow that.
I'd have a stroke. So
That'd be Ken Burns.
Did you find any bad stores?
any stores I wasn't a fan of?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. There are definitely stores that I knew 10 minutes in, like, oh, we could have spent today driving to the next store and gotten 2 days there. And a lot of it would just be, there was one store, I won't name it, it's not going to be in the movie, but rather than have the owner or a manager come talk to us, they had an ex-employee who is now like a legal expert show up in like a blazer with his hair done, like he looked like a car salesman. And not like in a fun, like Saul Goodman kind of way. Like, in a really weird, like every question we asked was just like, the answer felt so rehearsed and measured. So things like that, I was like, all right, bye. Like, no one's gonna want to watch this. Like, whereas people like Neil Crockett, like you could feel like that's a real person. That guy, no shame, doesn't care. Like, so, but yeah, that definitely came up, like for sure. So.
How did you choose what stores you went to?
Good question. How do we choose the stores? So the initial road trip we did, which is where like 80% of the stores came from, it really came down to like, okay, we have like 3 weeks. That's how much we can spend based on my savings account. So we knew, I knew for certain with like Salem. I lived in Salem and I loved that store. I'm like, this guy's such a character. I can come back to for no money. If we make no money on Indiegogo, I can at least cover this store. And then we just charted a map, like what we could do for 3 weeks without killing ourselves. And how far south we could go, how far west and everything. And I remember going, okay, let's go to Tulsa, Oklahoma. What's in Tulsa, Oklahoma for video game stores? One. Okay, great, we'll go there. In other stores, we would make decisions like, oh, do we really need to go to like the major city in this state, or would it be more interesting to go kind of on the outskirts or in a suburb to kind of get that's a different flavor. We didn't just want to be like Boston, New York, Chicago. Like, we wanted to shake it up. I hope that answers the question. Yeah.
A few more questions.
Is there going to be anything about stuff like reproduction cards?
We talked about it. If reproduction cards were in the movie, it would have just been like, here's a way people are trying to stay afloat. Here's something unique they could offer, like that, and like emulation. Like we just looked at like 90 minutes. Like we did interviews on it, but we just can't fit it in right now. But we did. There's plenty of footage of reproduction cards. There's tons of stores that were selling them. Well, is it reproduction carts when they were the like new games, like the fan-made games? No.
Like,
That's a homebrew.
That's a homebrew stuff. There weren't, okay, no, there were no reproduction cards. Okay, my apologies, sorry. No, most of this, we talked about the stores selling stuff that you couldn't sell like through like without much litigation online.
Counterfeit games.
Counterfeit games, that kind of stuff. That stuff we did, that's not in the movie, but we did interview people about that. They're in, yeah, I told you this. Back there.
So having interviewed all of these people, how do you feel that the future looks for independent game store owners?
I think it's gonna be a lot like vinyl stores, like vinyl shops. Like we're gonna get into it in the last act of the movie, because the movie isn't just like what's gonna happen to like all these stores. It's more of a it's a case by case thing. Like
It's open-ended.
yeah, different people run their businesses differently. Like some people are probably gonna be okay, some people aren't gonna be okay, because some people it's like the Alamo. They're like, no, I'm just gonna keep doing my one thing. I'll be fine. Other people adapt. So
He's a game store owner, by the way.
they are.
Yeah.
Are you a survivor?
I'm doing all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's, when you look at it, there used to be a record shop in every town in America. Not that there'll always be a video game store in every shop. Well, there won't be, GameStop is not long for this world. They're not. They've already closed a chunk of them a year ago.
They're changing
They closed-
so much.
Yeah, so in this current form, they're gonna be gone. So that has to affect the mom and pop shops as well, because first of all, they get screwed on selling the new games. And 20 years from now, the games that are bought digitally now, they can't sell repro versions of Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah.
They won't be able to. So it's like, that's just the way it's gonna probably play out. Sorry.
They're actually not to be too bittersweet. There have been multiple stores we talked to that since talking to them, they're gone. Like the owners still exist in this world, but the stores are no longer.
Yeah, there's a game store chain here that's closed almost a dozen stores the past year.
Yeah.
One of the bigger chains in the Northwest. I won't say which one, but they said, oh yeah, we closed like 11 stores. And I'm like, oh, okay.
We can probably do maybe one more.
One more question.
What you got?
Did you try interviewing GameStop?
Wait, early on, like before even the road trip, we talked about if GameStop's in this, like, how are they not the bad guy? Like how are they not?
They could be the Billy Mitchell, really?
Yeah,
Let's do it. Yeah, let's put them back in.
because when we first started doing it, that's when GameStop was buying up all the old retro stock and filling up their warehouses. We're like, oh, is that too heady to explain to the average person? Like,
We gotta put that in a little bit.
yeah, like that came up, but we just decided, GameStop's not even really mentioned in the movie, I think, like, cause it, so, I mean, maybe it should be.
Not at all, about all the store closures.
I don't think maybe it could be in the first act, like that probably would.
Well, you can add it to the list of the person we want to interview tomorrow.
Very true. Anything else, or anyone else got a
Yes.
quickie? I hate wrapping up. What you got?
Oh, what,
Yeah,
me?
yeah.
Yeah. I'm not like trying to brown nose or anything like that, but like, I think he's right about the title.
Thank you. You're a plant. The title should be changed. So, quick straw poll. How about, I had a few different ideas for names. I like something video game related, but not over the top. How about Last Life? Something like that. No? Okay. All right. How about, we had a couple. Running on Steam.
Okay. Copland.
What was the other ideas we had?
Oh, God. We talked about, they're all bad. It's a hard movie to sum up in like 3 words, right? It's probably gonna have a third title. Like, it's gonna have to have something that like has SEO, like the word video game in it.
Yes, SEO.
Yeah.
I like something that had to do with the final life of video games. Something with life in there, because if the lifespan for the media is changing, the lifespan potentially of these stores is going to be more limited than we thought. That's how I looked at it.
Your father's game store.
Your father's game store?
I think years ago I jokingly said, let's not call it American game stores because I hate how everything's called American.
Do you guys have an idea?
And then like a month ago I went, oh man, that would have been probably okay. I should have told myself that. You had one, right?
Just something with video game and store in it. Would be nice, because not resale. We had to read the description to figure
Yeah.
out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was my concern, is that it's not a video game term. It's simply you see it on like packing games.
Yes.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah.
Like Sonic, yeah, exactly. That's the only time you say it. So something with video game in there, or
Yeah.
store. I heard a continue.
Retro,
That's not a bad one. Continue.
yeah, like Last continue or no more continue?
9
So last continue is good, but last life is not? You don't hear that last life is a video game term. What's it? It's too what? It's too obvious?
Obvious, yeah.
I just want to make sure.
Oh, King of Kong's not obvious? Come on!
Press A to continue.
Press A to continue. My biggest worry is that I don't want to come up too fatalistic because then people are going to think like, obviously the video game industry is not in trouble. So why would you say it? It's got to reflect retail or physical.
Press A to continue. What do you press start to continue?
Yeah.
Press F.
Yeah.
Put a quarter in, yeah.
9 seconds.
Listen, more about consoles than arcades, but I see what you're saying.
Reset.
Reset. That's not terrible. That's not terrible. That's actually not bad.
I'll think about it.
Oh, he hates it.
I really think about it.
We do know that not for resale should not be the final talk. Let's stop that. Not for resale should not be the final talk. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, thanks for coming out on that note.
Thank you so much.
I hope you guys enjoyed it. This will come out next year, maybe a different name.
Very friends about the movie.